Thank you very much for tuning in for part 3 of The Missing Scientist. Tonight, we're going to do a deep dive into the remaining of this case. We'll check the theories, what goes for and against, and our conclusion. When patterns are unclear, explanations begin to take shape.
There's commonality in all of these individuals. They all had, very substantial research experience, either with nuclear weapons, aerospace, defense systems, advanced physics, and these are things that other countries, they don't want to see us succeed at.
Exactly, Nicole.
Were they trying to silence them, to take them out? Patterns.
And I would just add one thing. NASA says it is now investigating because at least 4 of the individuals that you see on your screen were connected to NASA. And I would just add that in that group of agencies that you listed, all of this is connected. It does have some nexus to, let's call it generally military. And so it will be curious to see if there is some foreign element involved here.
Do you see any authoritative figure that could come out with a level of credibility that would make Americans say,
unless somebody walks out of one of those labs with something and releases it before they disappear or commit suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head 12 times, I don't think it's going to happen.
Do you think we get another Bob Lazar coming out near term? We almost got it, and he's dead. Matthew Sullivan was, fact, going to testify 2 weeks before he died, I think. And that's why people and the FBI are investigating if his death was suspicious.
That breakthroughs in science, particularly in propulsion, energy, and defense, might be controlled.
But if these people were working on some sort of new energy source or some sort of new propulsion system, and you've got to imagine there's a very small amount of people that are on the cutting edge of whatever this stuff is. If you whack one of them, you put a big stop to any progress, especially if you get the main people, the lead scientist. Well, I'm sure you're aware of this narrative about the missing scientists and scientists that have turned up dead and been killed.
100%. And that's real. I think, say your family's mobbed up, okay, and y'all own a nice Italian restaurant, and it's world-renowned, and you're busting at the seams, and you're franchising and putting out cookbooks and everything. You got this one chef who's the kingpin of all of it, but you're afraid he's talking to your competitors. Now, you don't bump him off. What you do is you rough up a few of the bus boys, and that sends a quick dadgum message that you need to shut your mouth.
Not just hidden, but managed.
Focused microwave energy beam that is capable of cooking you from the inside out. It'll penetrate through a window, it'll penetrate through drywall. All these things taken together, it is a very serious national security threat.
My hands have been burned to hell and back as I've been typing. Because you can beam me through there and through there, and you can get a 3D image of what I'm typing. Because this computer doesn't have a Wi-Fi card, you can't hack it. So we just did that, and did that as an act of pure desperation. And guess what? My hands still burn because there's damage, but it's my body relaxed when we barricaded the shit. And it was relief. Immediately.
Is it something akin to, for instance, the Havana syndrome?
This wasn't alleged, it's all documented. And I actually showed, the images of her to a doctor friend of mine, and she said, yeah, those are consistent, with the directed energy microwave weapons. Havana syndrome is mostly acoustic, but these were directed energy microwave weapons that literally, fry your body, fry your central nervous system, fry your spine, give you all kinds of gastrointestinal problems. There was a Russian guy who was caught with one, I believe, 2 years ago in the States, and it was in a congressional hearing in 2024. You can have like a pickup truck or a vehicle. You have like a sort of an emitter, kind of like microwaves, like you'd get in a microwave oven, but in a very focused way. So then you have like a power source as well, which you can carry in the vehicle. Then you point out the window, and it will go through drywalls as well. Depending on the power of the emitter, it could be anywhere from like 50 meters to 100 meters, maybe more. But you point it where you want it to go, and then hit zap.
That governments and organizations operate with layers of information, some visible, some restricted.
I've seen anomalous health incidents happen to key government officials helping me, and I've even seen that, which is disgusting and sick, seeing non-kinetic directed energy weapon systems used against officials. Unfortunately, I have close friends of mine that were helping me in my investigation that suffered as well, and all that was reported, mind you, to the FBI and counterintelligence elements, but there was little to no help. The UAP disclosure issue dovetails very nicely to the Havana Syndrome AHI. There's not a 100% causal relationship, mind you, but it's another subject that the government doesn't want to acknowledge.
This was an actor which had a lot of resources on the ground and that managed to pass for a long, long period of time, basically unimpeded, and that may or may not have been able to suborn or subvert law enforcement and authorities at local, state, and federal level. They avoided counterintelligence scrutiny. She talked to the FBI for 3 months, and then the FBI turned around and said, we don't have jurisdiction on this case to cover this case. Well, hang on, they are the counterintelligence agency, domestic for the United States. So why didn't they have jurisdiction? I don't get that.
And those who move beyond those boundaries might face consequences.
I think people are afraid to speak out about this topic because the government entities have been very, very successful in conducting a disinformation campaign with regard to the American public. So you mentioned UFO and people immediately begin to snicker, right?
And I know family members are going to say, well, they got nothing to do with the UFO, but generally they don't talk. They keep it. Most of those guys and gals are so locked down, they keep their mouth shut. Because they didn't, their nuclear secrets that they have would have already leaked out as well.
And maybe, futile effort, but is Congress looking at that at all? I haven't seen any.
Some of them are, but somebody, it's always just us on the fringe that are doing it. And there's a few of us that are involved. And I'd say there's about, I don't know, maybe 10 of us that are watching this thing pretty close and haven't peeled off yet.
In this view, the pattern is not accidental. It is control. That individuals themselves might be influenced, psychologically, subtly.
You ever dream about Kuwait? Captain Marco!
How much do you actually know about your friend?
I served under him. He was a good man.
That's what the neighbors always say about serial killers.
Somebody put an implant inside me. I got a good feeling they put one in you, too.
You need to get help, Ben.
I'm not crazy, Shaw.
Raymond, this is J.B. Johnston of Manchurian Global.
We're strong supporters.
At a flick of a switch, we can adjust character, change personality.
I don't think they factored you in.
Hello, Captain. Do you remember me?
Lee Harvey Oswald was working with the CIA. He lived in Russia for a while, married a Russian woman, brought her back to America. He looked like a spook. He was behaving like an operative. When he said, I'm just a patsy, very convincing, but also very calm. If you were just accused of shooting the president, you'd be like, I didn't do it. I don't know what's going on. I did not fucking shoot the president.
MK Ultra had a role not only in the JFK assassination, but in the RFK assassination. You mentioned Sirhan Sirhan, who had written in his diary right before he shot RFK JFK. It was like some neuro-linguistic programming was coming through him. To this day, does not remember having shot him. And you have RFK Jr. now as head of the FDA. He himself has gone deep on his father's death. I think he was 14 at the time. And I think he recognizes that he was actually shot from the back and not from the front. So there was this other gunman, again, just like JFK. I think he thinks that, MK Ultra was involved. I think these things are going to start to come out, that MK Ultra was far more pervasive than we ever realized.
Dude, Kennedy was shot over 60 years ago, and they still won't release everything.
The idea that a person could act without fully understanding why.
You're assuming he was trying to kill the president.
And the guy's been programmed to do this. He immediately turns, from one way to the other, overnight almost. And we're seeing this more and more, I think.
What do you mean the guy's been programmed?
I think these people are...
You mean like MK Ultra type programming?
100%.
Really?
The CIA, they were grabbing these people up and giving them, I guess, acid or LSD, whatever, and then programming them, and then they said they weren't doing it, and then they got sued, and they said, oh, we lied, we were doing it, but we're not doing it anymore. Now, which time are they not? So here's my thought on this. I think you've got a bunch of people today, because of this, it's just open up your head and pour it in, and they can put these things out to people just enough to where they know that there's going to be a reaction.
So I'd like to congratulate President Trump for having the nerve to go against recommendations by the FBI and the CIA to release these files so that independent researchers, scientists can go over them and we can make up our own minds rather than having the CIA make up our minds.
And the CIA apparently is still fighting the full release.
Programs like Project MKUltra are often referenced here, not as direct proof, but as historical precedent. In cases ruled as suicide,
I was in podunk fucking redneck middle of nowhere county school through the 6th grade. We got bullied out. It was awful. I homeschooled. Jim Ashburn, the inventor of YBCO, was a homeschool dad from my cover group. Sean Bellina, MK Ultra motherfucker. His parents were both OBGYNs for MK Ultra, and he was raised on LSD from the age of 6.
Earlier today, I spoke with Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, came to us with some pretty shocking breaking news.
Yeah, so we were actually just notified that the CIA went in and took documents out of ODNI, multiple boxes pertaining to the JFK files as well as MK Ultra. The reason why this is troubling is there was an executive order that the president had directed the full declassification of JFK, but then also to the MK Ultra files. The CIA famously has said that, all documents were released and other documents had been destroyed. So these are allegedly those documents that apparently never existed, and so very troubling. Well, the CIA does not have jurisdiction to work against an executive order by the president. And so the fact that someone did this when the president is out of country, from what I gather, I believe that Director Radcliffe is with him. And so this seems like it was an internal coup, to be honest.
Some question whether those conclusions are complete.
Brother, I've got bad news. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. There is none. Like, I'm sure they have some, wacky files and stuff, because they had so many old-school weirdo projects, like the MK Ultra stuff. They also had all of these, astral projecting projects that they were doing, the CIA was conducting with, the psychics and stuff, which is why, a year ago, you saw those articles about the declassified CIA documents confirming that there was giants on Mars. But if you actually look at it, what they were doing is they had these drug-induced maniacs go in, blindfold them, and try and, guess cue cards that they were holding, and then they'd tell them stories about how they astral projected onto Mars and had conversations with giants. You're not gonna find anything actually convincing when it gets declassified, because they did some fucking nut job shit in the CIA back in the 60s and 70s. So ESP, mind readers, astral projectors, time travelers, they had all of these kind of wacky programs. They also killed a lot of people. Yeah, it was interesting stuff, man, I'm telling you. Those declassified files and the ones that we keep getting have some really wacky projects the government looked into at the very least.
There is no verified evidence connecting these ideas to the cases mentioned, but the possibility continues to be discussed. that some of these individuals were not lost, but relocated.
Nobody disappears in this country unless they want to disappear. You know, there's cameras everywhere. And it just, to me, it's just, it reeks of a deep state sewer.
Well, another interesting data point about Melissa's disappearance, I believe her husband stated that he observed her using her security card at the facility, and then later she made the statement that she needed to return home to retrieve her identification card. So that's a very, very strange data point with regard to her disappearance. And
moved into classified environments, protected, or reassigned to continue their work out of public view.
2 years ago, Gil's mother thinks he might have disappeared to be a spy for the U.S. government and is still alive. And their authorities say that's possible.
What?
He had a long history. I think he said he was an interrogator and knew 6 different languages. He worked for the UN. It said when he went missing, he had survival skills from his military training. He was a paratrooper.
Huh.
And he had a camera on him was apparently all he had.
So they could have staged his disappearance so that they could position him somewhere else. People would think he's dead. You give him a totally new identity. Now he's working undercover somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine that's possible. I would imagine, like, if you wanted someone to work for you and you say, you know, this person's going to work undercover in some top secret mission. Okay, but you've got to disappear. You got to disappear from regular life so that we can give you this new identity. We can't just have, you know, your friends looking for you. We have to move you to some other new part of the world.
So, Joe, if you were me and you were sitting across from his mom, that's really something vile, I think, to do to your parent.
Oh, for sure. Horrific.
She was a broken human.
Yeah. No, that's terrible.
And I asked her, I said, there's a good chance Gilbert's somewhere in the world watching this. What do you want to say to him? She said, Gilbert, just please come home. She was like an 88-year-old woman then.
Oh, boy.
In this interpretation, the pattern still exists, but it represents continuation, not disappearance.
I think the guy was a general, one of these scientists that just recently went missing.
Yeah.
Literally right after Trump's made the statement that he was going to release these files. There was like, I forget how many scientists there were. A lot of them weren't really connected, but a couple of them were really crazy.
McCaslin was
McCaslin, that was a crazy story.
There's a thing that I am aware of, but I do not claim it's what happened to him. But I am aware of the following. Anyone who has that many special access programs where only a handful of people know anything in them. The president does not need to be told.
Right.
You sign a non-disclosure agreement. They contain, if you do not follow these rules, you hereby waive every constitutional right you have. And in the end, we are allowed to take any sanction we wish. Any sanction.
Delete you off the face of the earth.
Gone. Including this case, I believe that with all these secrets in his head, he began showing signs of dementia. And so he would be one that would be picked up and taken away and taken care of. That is my belief, knowing what I know. When you get into this level, you give up a lot to have access to the secrets. You give up a lot. My guess is, when he and his wife figured out he was going downhill, and I know people who knew he was going downhill. So that's why I believe a clause that was in these NDAs was invoked to keep him safe and away from people so he couldn't tell secrets when he lost control of his faculties.
And do you think he's ever going to see his wife again, or is he literally willing to walk away from his entire life?
I believe in order to protect her, he walked away from his life. At that level, the insiders assume that you have to some level informed your spouse. And she may have even been read into enough to realize she had to keep her mouth shut. And he probably would have worked it out with her a long time ago. If I go missing for whatever reason, here's all you're allowed to say. She was matter of fact, like a rehearsed speech. As you can imagine, the U.S. government has a cadre of people that they wipe their background, change their persona, maybe change their looks, maybe do whatever it took so they can do a job that needs doing. And they walk away from their life and no one ever hears from them again. And I don't have any evidence, but I'm telling you, I don't like what I hear.
It's just strange that it all times up with the Trump disclosure files and all that stuff, you know.
No. That I just don't think is a coincidence, because the insiders that don't like him knew he was involved in disclosure on the side of pro-disclosure.
Right.
No one knew who McCaslin was until WikiLeaks leaked it.
Right.
And then the most speculative theory, that some individuals, because of what they knew, became a risk. Not necessarily to governments, but to something else. In UFO lore, this is where references to the so-called Men in Black appear. Figures described as intervening when certain boundaries are crossed.
Well, there's something out there, and former U.S. Marine Michael Herrera has seen it. In 2009, while stationed in Indonesia, Herrera's battalion was assisting with humanitarian operations, providing security for supply drops to the locals. Once there, he saw a rotating object changing colors and emitting a humming sound. After failing to reach his battalion leader, he moved in to investigate and began filming with a small camera, but moments later, Herrera says he was ambushed by men in black as the craft shot towards the ocean at lightning speed without making a sound. Once back at camp.
Yeah, so when we got back to, it was in Subic Bay in the Philippines, and that's when we were on Liberty. So we ended up having the first night. It came back to on ship, and my camera was on my rack. So the memory card and the battery were taken out of that.
Did you see it taken out by
someone?
someone?
No, I did not. No, I had it secured in my locker, of course. Okay, and another battery that I had for a backup, so I popped that one in. Nothing happened with that camera. So subsequently, after we got back to Camp Hansen, there was an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel that met up with us and some of the guys that were with me, and basically made us forcefully sign a non-disclosure agreement and a TSSI document that stated that we couldn't talk about what we saw. We were threatened with treason, with a capital crime, including death or imprisonment.
Who is threatening them? Who is doing the threatening?
We know who they are. I don't want to name names right now.
Are they from the government? Or are they
They're
private?
mostly private corporate contractors that have been ordered to snuff out people. And this is absolutely true. Now, law enforcement has been given this information over the last 3 or 4 years by us, because they're doing extrajudicial killings, but the entire programs are being run off budget and treasonous.
Are private companies who are doing these types of programs, or is this the government doing
both?
this?
So let me explain the
Because why would the federal government be helping if these are programs that the federal government is running with these private companies?
Well, it probably isn't politically correct to say this. There are two governments. There's the government of we the people, the president, the Congress, and there's a shadow covert program government. Yeah. And so this entity is sort of a hybrid of the two. And I discovered that in the early 90s. It's now been proven that that's the case, and I think the administration and law enforcement know that. Yeah. So they're having sort of an awakening on this in the last few years since the president came in.
There is no verified evidence supporting this, but the idea persists because it fits the pattern. So how do we interpret all of this? On one side, the pattern feels real. The overlap in fields, the unusual circumstances, the growing number of names, and the inclusion of both scientists and those who speak about them adds another play. On the other side, there's a simpler explanation, that these cases are unrelated, that individuals from different circumstances are being grouped together, that disappearances, deaths, and incomplete stories are being arranged into a narrative. This is pattern recognition. We're wired to find meaning, to connect dots, to create a structure from uncertainty. But that same ability can create connections that aren't actually there. And once a pattern forms, it becomes difficult to question it. So what are we really looking at? A hidden system or a constructive narrative? Are these scientists and these voices connected by something we don't yet understand, or the way their stories have been collected, repeated, and expanded, because the pattern does exist, not necessarily in the events themselves, but in how they are arranged, and in how we interpret what we don't fully understand.
Tonight, the FBI continues its probe into space scientists dead and missing as the death toll actually rises to 17. Joining us tonight, Crime Stories investigative reporter Dave Mack.
Nancy, we have more names. NASA nuclear engineer. Joshua LeBlanc, at 29 years old, was reported missing around 4:30 in the morning. He left his wallet, keys, phone, stuff like that at home, but he was gone. He was working on nuclear propulsion for NASA, was missing all day. 2:45 that afternoon, a fiery crash involving Joshua LeBlanc's Tesla. The crash was so bad, he hit a guardrail, crashed into some trees. His body, not even identifiable for 3 days. Odd to explain deaths in the mystery surrounding the scientists that have gone missing or dead recently.
And maybe that's the part that stays with us. Not just the names, but the echoes around them. The stories that continue even after the facts end. If you found this episode interesting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, step over to the B-side.